Okay, so Mordew by Pheby honestly probably ruined my reading goal for this year, given how long it took for me to decide not to finish it. And while normally I don't talk about books I didn't finish on this channel, this one is different because even as I was writing the script for this book review, I still haven't quite come to terms with why I gave up on it the way I did. I just knew I couldn't keep burning my time on it. So Mordew honestly might be the worst thing that Amazon has ever done to me as a company personally, because I got this book through a Kindle recommendation, and I guess it was tracking me to when I was looking up when Joe Abercrombie's The Devil was going to be released, because like a lot of Abercrombie's work, Mordew is this dark fantasy. It's actually the first book in a larger trilogy called The Cities of the Weft, and to be honest with you, it's a strange book. The story is obviously set in Mordew, I know, shocker, and Mordew is this grimy, crumbling city by the sea, protected by a barrier, and it's constantly under threat of another figure we know just as the Mistress. The city is also ruled by this super shady guy known only as the Master, and the world is just gross, like in an almost impressive way. For example, for pages, this book fixates on something called the living mud. And the best way I can describe what the living mud is, it's like magical industrial waste that is barely controllable and can sometimes spit out something called flukes, which are these mutants that I never really fully understood. Like, some flukes are just skinned and then used to make like bags, while others apparently are like sentient enough to serve the master of the city. And on that note, you're probably gonna hear me say I didn't understand a lot, which honestly felt like part of this book's design, because right at the start you're told there's a glossary at the back of the book, but warned not to use it because the author wants you to discover things along with Nathan, who's the main character, which is like a fair premise, but it made the 40 chapters I read extremely confusing. And speaking of Nathan, he's introduced as a pretty standard fantasy protagonist. Like, he's a boy from the slums who clearly has like some connection to the larger magical world that he doesn't yet understand. His mom is a gentleman caller, as they say, and she's doing what she can to support her family, while his dad is dying of one of the most disgusting diseases I've ever read about, called lungworm, which is exactly what you probably think it is. And of course, Nathan has a special power that very few have, but like, okay, quick note, going from Mistborn to Mordew was just a massive shift. Because like in Mistborn, the powers are so clearly defined, and Nathan's power, it's described throughout the book as the sensation of itching and scratching, and it's literally the most nondescript magic system I've ever come across. Like how sometimes this power opens safes and other times it's expected to raise the dead, I just couldn't wrap my head around the scope of this power. And like, I don't feel like I need a super rigid magic system to have a good time reading a story. I mean, One Piece is one of my favorite series ever, but I do like having some idea of what the magic can and cannot do, and this book gave me no clue about what the limits were on this power. Nathan's main quest, though, at least in the chapters that I read, is trying to get enough money to buy his dad some medicine for his lungworm, and along the way, he gets pulled into this crime syndicate, and his kindness is like constantly exploited by people who clearly understand his powers better than he actually does. And I think that's one of the bigger themes of the book, which is the way that people will abuse innocence to achieve their goals, which I did enjoy, but I could only enjoy it for as long as I could tolerate reading everything else in the book. And now I feel like would be a good place to stop and say, like, I really want to emphasize this. I wanted to like this book. The story, the ideas, the themes, it's all stuff that would normally be right up my alley. I mean, even the prose is good. It's literary without being overbearing, and the world building is very unique. And you can tell that it was written by someone with a clear vision who had something meaningful they wanted to say, but I just struggled so much to get to the point where those ideas actually did something, and eventually I felt my admiration just turn into exhaustion. Honestly, this book reminded me of how I felt reading The Name of the Wind for the first time by Patrick Rothfuss, or watching the adaptation of The Magicians. And because like, I know there is something great in that series. I just didn't enjoy the experience enough to get to that greatness. I saw somewhere online talking about like how if you like your fantasy very strange and cerebral, this book might be your thing. But honestly, like, I'm someone who typically likes that. but there was just something about the constant obstacles this book threw up that just wore me down over time. Because, like I said, I made it to chapter 40, which is roughly 40% of the way through the book, and while there were flashes of brilliance, I found myself constantly hitting a wall of exhaustion. Like in my video on why we love heists, I talked about how the pacing of this book dragged and how the introduction of the heist arc helped a lot, but even that got tiring after the third or fourth job with no progress. I mean, the book is just slow, and for every section of movement you get pages and pages of just nothing. And if it's not nothing, it's just sadness. That's all it is. And even when you figure out something shady is going on, Nathan, who is a literal child with an underdeveloped prefrontal cortex, just ignores it, and you just have to sit there waiting for the inevitable fallout to come. Nathan, honestly, though, isn't the worst character in the book, but for me, he felt very flat. He's less like a person and more like a vehicle for Phoebe's ideas, or a punching bag for bad things to happen to, and they happen a lot. I get that might have been the point, especially after spoiling myself on the ending once I decided I wasn't going to finish this book, but it did make it hard for me to connect with him. Like, at best, I felt bad for him, and at worst, he just irritated me. He's passive in a way that makes sense for the story, but he's really not satisfying to read. And then there's Prissy and Gam, which were just completely different stories. Gam is this classic, mysterious, gruff mentor figure, but he only wants Nathan on his team because Nathan has these powers. And yes, he trains him, but I never felt like he cared about Nathan. And that's part of what makes these criminal crew stories so special, because if they're not going to have this found family dynamic, then all we're left with is the fact that they're just a group of criminals, and honestly, that's a tough sell for me. Gam felt like he had all the right ingredients in his recipe, right? But he was just underbaked. And by the time we start supposed to be getting more invested into him, like when he's being held from ransom by Padge and stuff, I just was so tuned out of the story that I didn't care anymore. And Prissy is another one of these just wasted feeling characters. She had so much potential. She was introduced as this clever, scrappy girl from the slums, and I thought she'd become this strategic foil to Nathan, who never seems to really understand how anything works. But instead, she just kind of floats through the story. Her choices feel extremely reactive, and she never seems to grasp the bigger picture, even when it's staring her right in the face. I wanted to root for her, but she felt so scattered, both emotionally and narratively, and she's not this bad character, but it's really hard to say what she adds to the story outside of being Nathan's love interest. There's this scene with a rooftop where one of their team members looks like they've died, right? And she is so obsessed with oh, we can't leave him behind. We got to save him. We got to do something. We got to do. And I'm just lady, there is nothing to be done. We need to get out of here before we all die too, because there are dogs here that apparently eat human flesh. And it just, I couldn't take her after 30 or so chapters. I was tired. And then there's Joe's, and literally, he's fine. They have this mysterious aspect where we don't really understand how their magic works, and they have this gimmick of telling stories, and I'm sure they're going to be important later on if you continue reading, but honestly, I just didn't care anymore. I mean, I don't know how many times I've said that in this review, but it got to the point where that's all I felt. I just had to stop. And look, in terms of world building, I think it's unique. I just felt overwhelmed. The city is really vivid and detailed, but it's suffocating, and there's no relief that seems to come. It's just relentless grime and dread all the time. But the biggest issue for me, the thing that made me just stop reading, was that I stopped trusting the story to reward my patience. I kept hoping that there would be this moment where it would all come together, and maybe it does, but it was just too deep into the book for me. 40% through, I wasn't feeling rewarded for reading it. I just had more questions. There was never any answers coming. There was never any clarity. And maybe in chapters 96, 97, 98, everything comes together, but that's just too much for me. I need some wins. I really do. I've come to a conclusion that even though I love grimdark stories like Joe Abercrombie's First Law series, I didn't realize how important those small wins we got were to make the pain of that book at times tolerable. You need the wins, and I feel like Phebe's wins were a little too far and few between. Now, like, okay, I don't think that Mordew is a badly written book. I think it's just a very specific book for a very specific type of reader, and if you love like speculative fiction packed with allegory and cosmic horror and existential dread, this book might even be a reread for you. It's just that, like, no, I'm not gonna say it. Also, to continue to be nice, Pheby can write. Like, some of his paragraphs are strikingly beautiful or grotesque in a way that really sticks with you. And even though I didn't love the characters, I have to admit they're consistent. They make sense within the world that Phebe's created, even if I didn't connect with them. And honestly, despite not finishing it, I still think about Mordew a lot, about what it was trying to say, about how rare it is to find fantasy books that are just unapologetically weird and ambitious. Because even though I didn't finish this book, it doesn't mean that I don't think that there was no purpose to Mordew. But now honestly comes the hard part, which is, would I recommend Mordew to anybody? And honestly, only if you are in the mood for the slow, baroque, philosophical fantasy that makes you work for every ounce of understanding. It is not fun, but it is a unique experience. And if you're thinking about reading it, just know it's a commitment. It might reward you, or it might leave you like me, somewhere around chapter 40, staring at a page wondering what you've done with the last week of your life. I think this is probably the first book that I didn't finish that I actually think could be good for some people, which is why I still wanted to talk about it. And if that person is you, if you are a person who finished it and loved it, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please tell me what it is you think I might have missed and what it was that clicked for you. But honestly, like, I just want to understand. And that, guys, is all I have for you today. So if you like this video, please do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot. And if you could also follow me on Threads, I think I've finally pulled myself off Twitter X for good, and I don't plan to go back. So helping me grow a following on like Threads would be a major help to me as I try to grow this channel. Also, sometimes I game on Twitch. I used to game here, maybe I'll game here again, but for right now it's all on Twitch. So if you were into that before, that's where you can find it now. Anyway though, whatever it is you guys choose to do next, I hope you have a great rest of your day. And until next time, peace. I'm gonna go read The Devils now because I need to have a fun reading experience. I need it. I need to remember that I enjoy reading. All right, guys. Bye.